All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the QX Financial Podcast. Today, we are joined again by attorney Phil Shekerlian, and we have a really special episode today. We're going to be diving into the upcoming 2020 election, the politics that surround that, and most importantly, the implications for the everyday American on how that could turn out. So, again, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Having me again.
Cool, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. I know it's a very hot topic lately is the election, and we'll try to keep too much opinion and bias out of it, and just try to deliver the facts of what's going on, because that's what really matters at the end of the day for most people. So I'm really excited to talk about this with you today, Phil.
Absolutely. Yeah. I believe I will be able to present this in a nonpartisan way and keep it as fair and unbiased as possible. That being said, if there is any lean in there, it affects my business quite a bit as to which outcome that we have. So, additionally, I do want to say that, everything I'm going to go over today is speculation. This is stuff that was presented at one point in time by the candidates. They may have changed their minds since I heard this information, because it seems that both candidates are changing their mind on a daily basis. And that, that even if one of the candidates promises to do something, they can promise it till they're blue in the face, but they really need to have the cooperation of Congress, both the House and the Senate, to get anything accomplished. So even though one of them wants to do something or do something else, it may never actually happen.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Okay. So I think let's start off with something a little bit easier. There's two propositions that I wanted to talk about that kind of affect taxes and the way that people should make their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is Prop 15. This is a controversial one. This is based on property taxes for commercial real estate. I'm going to go into a brief history in another video later. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how the property taxes work here in California. But for right now, Prop 13 is really what governs our property taxes here in California. And what it does is it protects the assessed value from going up more than 2% per year. The assessed value, that is what the assessor uses to determine what your property tax rate is. So if your assessed value is $100,000, then whatever your property tax rate is a percentage of that $100,000, and that's how they base your taxes. So what Prop 13 does is says that $100,000 cannot go up more than 2% a year, year over year. Well, the reason that's great is because here in California, property appreciates by an average of 6.77% each year.
Right.
And so if your property does increase by the average, the 6.77, or even, quite a bit more on a good year, your property tax assessment value cannot go up more than 2% a year. And that is what allows a lot of people to afford to keep quite expensive homes where they would have otherwise been paying quite a bit for property taxes. Mm-hmm. You or maybe your parents may have a home that's probably worth around $1 million that was bought for, tens of thousands of dollars many, many years ago, and you're only paying a few $100s in property taxes. And this is why. It's from Prop 13. So currently, Prop 13 protects all real estate in California. However, the proposition on the ballot right now, Prop 15, that is for removing that protection from commercial real estate. Not residential. Residential will stay the same, but it's going to remove it from commercial. So there's some pros and cons. I just want to go over some basic quick ones. The pros is this is a great way for our state to generate taxes, for whatever we need it for: roads, education, infrastructure. This will generate a lot of revenue.
Right.
And it's at the expense of not your everyday homeowner and average, blue collar worker. It's at the expense of people that have a little extra money to invest into rental properties and to make extra money. Well, the downside to that is that the biggest one is, what is the definition of commercial? All it takes is one little change in a zoning law, and if you own residential real estate that you're renting out, and yet that real estate happens to be in a commercial zone, it could be converted to a commercial real estate property, and then now you're subject to that high tax increase. So that's always something to take into consideration.
Right.
Um, there's some people out there that have a theory that, well, this is just the first step to removing Prop 13 altogether, and step one is remove commercial, and then the next step is going to be, apply it to residential. I mean, that could be seen, but there's still steps that need to go to get to that point in time. But it is a concern to watch out for.
Right.
And then really the last con to this particular proposition is it doesn't just impose a tax on those that it doesn't impose a tax on those that actually invest in residential real estate. So what that means is that people that do have extra money, they will stop investing in commercial real estate and start investing more into residential real estate. And what that will do is that will cause the prices of residential real estate to inflate quite a bit and make it harder for the average person to buy a new home because the prices are so high. And commercial real estate will drop considerably in value, which it's already struggling due to COVID and people working from home and businesses realizing, hey, we don't need a brick and mortar. We can just operate from home. So it could really have a negative effect on the commercial real estate industry as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. We already have that issue of people, moving out of commercial offices, especially small businesses. During COVID, a lot of small businesses have realized that they don't need an office. They can do everything they need to do at home. And this would potentially exacerbate that problem, right?
Yeah, and I'm one of those. I'm reconsidering why I have such a large office when I only have one or two employees here at the office at a time because we're trying to keep our social distance.
Yeah, right. No, that's very interesting.
All right, so let's move on to Prop 22. This is the independent contractor exemptions one.
Yes.
You'll probably know it as the Uber or Lyft proposition.
Mm-hmm.
This, like I said, this is independent contractor exemption. So this law is based on what is an independent contractor and what is an employee. And that's really what it boils down to. The old law in California here, and the law that's still current in many states, is that there's multiple factors that are determined and they're weighed out in a totality of the circumstances to see whether or not somebody is an employee or an independent contractor. And unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, that was changed in April of 2018 by a California Supreme Court case known as the Dynamex case. In that case, the court said that totality of the circumstances and weighing the factors test is not enough. If somebody is performing a task for a business that is the normal nature of the service that the business provides to the public, then they're no longer an independent contractor, they're an employee. For instance, in this particular situation for Uber and Lyft offers transportation services to the public. Well, if you are driving for Uber or Lyft, you are providing transportation to the public. Therefore, according to that California test, how could you possibly be an independent contractor if you're doing exactly what that business sells itself as doing, or that holds itself out to the public as being?
Sure.
It'd be the same thing for like fixing toilets for a plumbing company, things along those lines.
And when you say that, what comes to mind to me is, aren't many independent contractors that are doing work for companies right now, almost all of them performing the work that is essential to the nature of the service?
A lot of times, yes, but not necessarily. You could have for instance, a plumbing company and have a CPA preparing tax returns and doing the bookkeeping for them. Well, that's not the natural business of the company is bookkeeping. Therefore, under this test, they would still be an independent contractor.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's more about the end product, the people that are sort of delivering that service, fixing the toilets, driving the Uber cars. Okay, that makes sense.
So that was the case held by the California Supreme Court. Well, the state of California decided to adapt that and take it one step further, and they actually made it a law in January 2020, or it was effective January of 2020. And that law is referred to as AB 5. And that law says the same test that the Supreme Court said, but it added in some exemptions. And it said, we understand the need for this. And let me back up a second. So the reason you really want to determine whether or not somebody is an employee or an independent contractor is because it regulates the benefits that person gets.
Right.
So if somebody is an independent contractor, then all they're really entitled to is payment for their services. But if somebody is considered an employee, they're under California law, they're entitled to paid sick and potentially vacation time, family medical leave, health insurance, and then the company also has to provide unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, and things like that. So it can get quite costly to a company. Sometimes, more than doubling the actual wages for the employee just to have them on as an employee.
Right. And they're paying payroll taxes. I don't know if you mentioned that. Did you say the payroll?
That doesn't necessarily come out of the company's pocket. The taxes are going to get paid at some point in time anyhow. But yeah, that does calculate. And so for a company to provide cheap services, a lot of the times it's just not feasible to have employees to provide those services. And that's the situation that we're in with Uber and Lyft. But the state realized that, hey, there are some businesses that can be affected by this that would essentially cease to exist if this rule really did apply to them. So they put out some exemptions, and they started off with a handful of exemptions and then passed another law about, I want to say 6 to 8 months later with some more exemptions. This particular proposition, Prop 22, is to add more exemptions for companies like Lyft and Uber that provide rideshare and transportation services.
I see.
And the current ones that are in effect are things like artists, press, architects and engineers, doctors, dentists, insurance agents, lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, hairstylists, a whole bunch of things like that.
And a question I had earlier, so when we're talking about Uber and Lyft, is it just the rideshare companies, do you know, or are they including, other gig companies like Postmates and Fiverr, the dog walking service?
Which ones they want to include in there, to be honest. I haven't looked that far into it. I just know the basics of the principle itself.
Okay.
And so, so this, like I said, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. There are pros and cons to this. The pros to this proposition passing is that if this proposition passes, then companies like Uber and Lyft don't have to shut their doors. They can continue to offer the service they are at the price they are, and nothing changes. The cons to this, though, is that, the cons to this is that, we've already excluded a lot of different types of businesses. As we keep adding more and more businesses to the exclusion, are we really even having this rule, or have we just watered it down so much that it really means nothing whatsoever?
Right, exactly.
And if we get to that point, not only is it that's just a pointless law, but you've now actually got a constitutional issue, because the Supreme Court already said that that's the way that things have to work. And if you've completely watered down the law that the Supreme Court said, that's unconstitutional, and a lawsuit can be filed and challenge that, and then we're right back to square one again.
Exactly. Yeah. Uber and Lyft have already said that they would have trouble, operating in California if they were to classify their employees, as employees rather than independent contractors. I don't know if that's exactly a threat to pull out of the state for sure. It's very interesting though, all of it, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, if this law doesn't pass, those companies are going to be forced to do basically one of two things. They're either going to pull out of California and just stop providing those services here, And then you're going to have to go back to using taxis to get around if you don't have your own ride, or the bus, or whatever public transportation.
Yeah.
I think where you are, you may have a little more public transportation than where I am. I'm in Orange County, California, and it's the bus or a taxi if you don't have those rideshare services. So
Yeah.
that can be pretty tough.
I think people have gotten so used to them, they kind of take them for granted. At least
Absolutely.
maybe younger people. Everyone has Uber or Lyft on their phone, so I can't imagine having to go back to waving taxis. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then if that happens, you got to be concerned about DUIs and things like that. Drunk related accidents and people getting killed again. It's a real slippery slope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then their other option, rather than pulling out, would be to still provide the service, but just increase the prices significantly so that they can still provide that service and remain profitable.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side to this equation is that by this not passing, a lot of people have the thought that, hey, the owners of these companies are just getting rich and lining their pockets with money. They're not paying their drivers enough. They should be able to afford to pay their drivers more money, give them some benefits. A lot of the people that drive have families, and they're doing this because it's tough to survive on one income right now as it is.
Absolutely.
So they're, a lot of people that I know, they have one spouse works during the day, the other one works at night driving Lyft or Uber, whatever the case may be. And that's how they support their family. Well, wouldn't it be great if you could also give them health insurance for their kids and benefits and things like that for doing that second job?
Absolutely.
So you really got to weigh the pros and cons as to what is most important for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all taken Uber rides and maybe chatted up with the driver, and I meet a lot of Uber drivers that rely on it as their full-time position. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, these companies are huge. There should be some middle ground where they can really take care of their employees.
And that's terrible if it's your full-time position. You have no benefits whatsoever.
Yeah,
so it's give and take.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for watching the video today of the QX Financial Podcast with Phil Shekerlian on propositions in the California 2020 election. Coming up next, we'll be talking about Biden versus Trump tax plans and some other implications that will be important to you. As always, please remember to like, share, and comment on this video, and share it with any family and friends that you think might get some benefit from it. Take care. The commentary provided in this video is for informational and educational purposes only. No advice, offer, or solicitation of any kind, expressed or implied, is being given. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of QX Financial, any subsidiaries, or associates thereof. When considering making any changes to your situation, you should consult a competent licensed professional. All rights reserved. Copyright September 17th, 2020.
This information is not intended and should not be taken as legal advice for any particular set of facts or circumstances. You should contact an attorney directly for advice with specific legal problems. None of this information creates an attorney-client relationship with the law offices of Phil Shekerlian.